My beloved brothers and sisters in Christ Jesus, only a prophet from God could have visualized the complete and perfect peacefulness of all of the natural order, as did the prophet Isaiah. With the prophet's heart, he wrote of a time when all of creation would live in perfect harmony, when babies would play with cobras and lambs could cuddle with wolves, when bears and cows would frolic together. All of nature, envisioned Isaiah, would be in peace. 2,800 years ago, Isaiah dared to believe that God's kingdom would usher in for Israel not just a political truce or a social accommodation or cultural compromise, but a real transformation of creation itself. What would Isaiah visualize if he prophesied for our world today? Muslims would embrace Jews. Immigrants would be greeted at our borders as the unique treasure that they are for this nation. Gay people would be warmly caressed by straight people. Klan members would kiss black people. Liberal Catholics would openly defend and respect the feelings and the opinions of conservative Catholics. Republicans would sit down and dine willingly and regularly with Democrats. However, given the vitriol of our world, Isaiah's original vision may well seem much more attainable today. But the Lord's prophet can always see things as they are intended to be, and not just as they happen to be at the present moment. Dr. King was such a prophet as he summoned our entire nation to live out the lofty calling of our foundational documents and to become the people of justice and peace that we were meant to be. We need so many more prophets today, perhaps more than even a generation ago, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. walked these very streets of Atlanta and preached about such a prophetic vision. Isaiah and Dr. King were both intrepid dreamers who summoned the people of Israel and America to envision what God intended us to become, and not just what we must grapple with each and every day. And what does God expect of us? God calls us to live in a perfect peace, not just with nature, but even more importantly, with one another. A true prophet always rises and raises our horizons incredibly high. A true prophet dares to see all of creation in absolute harmony. A true prophet demands that people, all people, see each other with a vision that ultimately must come from God Himself. A true prophet never settles for a mediocre solution or a half-hearted vision. And perhaps that is why prophets are so often ridiculed and occasionally even martyred. But our world, no less than the world of Isaiah, desperately needs a prophetic vision and challenge. This very city that has produced and nurtured Dr. King must now yield new prophets who can see according to God's vision and who have the courage to proclaim God's plan for peace and for harmony. Fortunately, we have witnessed a few such prophets in the recent past. We heard with incredible gratification of the families of those who were murdered in Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, who freely expressed their forgiveness of Dylan Roof, the delusional young white man whose hatred drove him to kill those people, having first engaged them in prayer. We must all ask ourselves, how does someone learn to hate so intensely in only 22 years? Yesterday in the city of New York, Stephen McDonald was buried from St. Patrick's Cathedral. He was the young white policeman who was shot and paralyzed by a 15-year-old black American, and who forgave that young African-American man and brought such a degree of healing and mercy to a situation that he startled and inspired all who heard of his courage and of his example. Again, we must ask ourselves, how can someone learn to love so absolutely in only 29 years? Black people forgiving white people, and a white police officer forgiving a violent young black man. Those kinds of examples startle us because we too often begin to believe that babies and cobras don't mix. Lambs and wolves must always be enemies. Cows and bears will never live together in peace. Yet these examples remind us of the vision of Isaiah and the dream of Dr. King. Lesser widely known actions of compassion and mercy are available to all of us when we volunteer and support the works of the St. Francis table here at the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, or when we engage in the countless works of charity of St. Vincent de Paul's Society, or Catholic Charities, or any of a dozen other social justice activities within this local church. These ways that we witness God's design for justice and harmony for all people rarely sees the media headlines like those in Charleston or in New York. But they too belong to God's plan to bring all of his creation into perfect harmony and peace. And we all too often forget that those who serve and care for the poor, the immigrant, the neglected, must be fulfilling Isaiah's vision and Dr. King's dream. And those people must more and more be us. We might not have the courage, the generosity, and the faith of the families in Charleston, or the courage and the compassion of a young New York police officer. We may not be able to do the truly newsworthy, heroic things, but we are called to do the ordinary things, the common things, the often overlooked things that will one day allow babies to play with cobras and lambs to cuddle with wolves and bears and cows to frolic together. Isaiah saw it. we are called to help it to come true. Amen.